I feel like this is for you, Jeff.
All right, let's kick it off.
Is tipping culture out of control? And do you tip a delivery driver before your food arrives? Well, the reason we ask is all because of a video that's gone viral. It appears to show a large pile of bags filled with food orders that have been sitting there for hours, all because no delivery drivers will take them since no tip was included. Lots of people are commenting. One person said, quote, only in America are we tipping 20% on a service before you get it, while others said, quote, there shouldn't be an option not to tip. So what do you think of this idea? No tip, no trip? What do you think, Jeff?
No tip, no trip. That's
you
good.
like that?
I do like that.
Good wordplay.
Yeah, that was good.
Right?
That was good. Here, there's a lot of things to unpack here. I'm all for tipping people. We all grew up in the service industry, right? I'm all for tipping people. But for doing a service well done, you get a tip. That's what a tip is originally for. Don't run your business relying on America to tip people and pay your employees' salary. You pay better wages, and then I'll tip your employees. If you're let me just put an example out here.
But you're going after the owner.
Yes, okay. Yes. So let me just say, if you're out to dinner, right? You're out to dinner, you're a nice meal, say it's $100, right? And someone's waiting on you, making small talk, taking care of my kids, which is already a headache in itself, refilling my water. You're going to get a nice tip, 20, 25%, 30%. Wow. You spent a half hour with me, 45 minutes, an hour with me, with 2 kids. Thank you. Here's for a great service. If I go with the exact same meal and pick it up, do I need to tip 20%? Absolutely not. But you flip that thing over and there's an option that says 50%? Are you out of your mind?
You mean that
what's happening?
When they flip over
I specifically like to cook because I don't want to deal with that.
Okay, Erica?
I agree with you. I'm just saying, no tip. No trip, okay? We have not caught up with the technology and all of the beautiful conveniences that we love to share. When we are talking about people who are going out to pick up your meal, coming to your home, delivering it, that is a service, and they aren't getting paid, and you are right, there is fault at the top.
Yes.
However, if this is a way that they are making their living and people want to have them have that service come to their home, they need to tip. Like, you are asking someone to work for free.
Right.
If you are somebody who's like, well, I can only afford to pay for the food, then get your butt to the place where you pick up the food.
Right.
And then, like, what's that pizza place where they're like, you tip yourself? But no tip, no trip. I am absolutely on the side of the delivery people.
And I think Jeff is too.
I am
Jeff
too, for
was
sure.
talking about pickup orders.
Pickup orders. If you're delivering something, you're providing me a service. Boom. Therefore, I will tip you. Yep. But don't make me feel bad with that thing in my face, 50%. What? I'm never coming out to eat ever again. I'd rather starve.
Now, what about, Tori, the fact that you tip before you receive it?
Right.
A lot of the times it's kind of built into the app process.
Right. Here's what I think. I think you're right. I think we're being held hostage by this because we're subsidizing these people's lives because you won't pay wages that go up with inflation. So is that stink? Yeah. Do you still do it?
No, it's a service.
Yeah.
I'm not with you there. I think we're comparing apples and oranges. I definitely agree with Jeff, the fact that it comes from the top. And yes, unfortunately, we're supplementing our tips. Unfortunately, and this has been going on since all of us were in the service industry, our tips supplement the unlivable wages that are today. And it's only gotten worse. However, when it comes to services, whether it's your hair, whether it's driving, picking up your groceries, literally spending a half an hour loading up your grocery cart, bringing it over to you, I think it's totally acceptable for it to be built in. God forbid if there is a problem.
Absolutely.
Oh.
No, absolutely.
Oh, no, I'm all for a built-in.
Oh,
yeah.
Like, don't you think it's, go ahead.
Well, no, I agree. Maybe that is the solution, to build in the tip. However, I think that people need to, like, I'm sorry, I think you a whole clown if you expect people to work for free on your behalf, especially because we're not talking about a necessity. We're talking about a luxury. So you decided to take your luxurious butt to your app and order your food, and you wanted to come to your home, and now you feel some type of way about giving the person who dropped off your food something? And a lot of people, don't get it twisted, because the people who are the loudest are the first ones to hit that 0% or no tip option, or worse, I didn't even know you could do this until this morning, but you could tip bait where you put in 20% to get the person to deliver your order, and then you change the tip to 5 or 0 or something after. You are a whole clown.
Yeah. Okay, we're gonna get to that's, yes, I'm with you, a whole clown. Okay, we've been when Erica says it.
Yeah.
Good evening, everybody, and welcome to our part 2 of our topic about tipping culture. Well, before we begin, this light is super bright, but I like looking a little white. But we can keep going. Miss Audrey, how you doing? What have you been learning so far in this last day, this last night of tipping? Have you been tipping more? Has your husband tipping more?
Yes, I have reflected a little bit on the matter, right? Just depending on how I'm going to tip or what, aspects go into tipping. For example, many times I've learned from a lot of people as well that we were interviewing, that we were talking to them personally about their experiences. And a lot of times we think about, okay, the person that is receiving the tip. But what about the person that is giving the tip, right? A lot of times, sometimes people give because they feel obligated. But then other times they don't really have that condition because especially in the time of today where a lot of people are struggling financially, they're unable to give. And sometimes I've heard from a person that she personally said that she feels bad, always being able to give, but finding herself in this moment of struggle, not being able to give. So sometimes it's not because they don't want to, it's just because they simply can't. And so honestly, that's something to consider as well when receiving tips. So
Not bad.
just something that we've been
You had an
talking about.
epiphany in these last 24 hours, which is totally fine. Ms. Lupita, if this person wants to join our poll, what can they do? What's the question? What are we asking?
So today we're continuing our topic from yesterday, and you guys could definitely scan the QR code that's going to appear right there on the screen. That way you guys can join the poll that we have been doing since yesterday. It was not concluded, so you guys can continue voting, casting your votes. And it is tipping culture. Is tipping culture reaching a tipping point? So we have 3 of the options. Got to give that 20%. I tip on service. Or who ordered gratuity? Those are the options. So please cast your vote. We are going to show the results at the end of the program.
Ms. Lupita, are you a tipper? Are you an avid tipper? Be honest. The
Yes.
camera's looking at you.
Exactly. Because the camera's looking, I am a tipper. Even if I don't want to, I have gone to Starbucks and I have put that. Either I change it or I give the $2 tip. But I've learned to tip, not because I want to, but because I've been taught that along the way.
Starbucks, I really, really enjoy your drinks, but when it comes to the tip, homie, I'm glad you have the dollar as an automatic.
Yes.
Because you best believe I'm gonna press $1, homie. I'm not tipping more than that. But anyways, I want to go to our second segment from yesterday that we were talking about. Do you think we always need to tip? I want you to pay attention and we'll be right back.
This is why you tip. I get paid $2.13 an hour as a bartender and a server. I should have made $150.81, but because I have to have Social Security, Medicare, and the income tax taken out, I was paid $9.28 for 70 hours of work.
Imagine if professors' income was determined on whether the students liked what they were being taught. Imagine if doctors were paid based on whether the patients were happy with the diagnosis. It just doesn't happen in any other profession. And the reason it happens in this profession is a history of race and class and gender in our country. It was an extra or bonus that aristocrats or nobles gave to serfs or vassals, but always on top of a wage. When the idea came to the States in the 1850s, it was because of rich Americans traveling to Europe and coming back and trying to show off that they knew the rules of aristocratic Europe. At first, Americans rejected it as a vestige of feudalism, said we are a democracy. But that idea changed right after emancipation of slavery, when the restaurant lobby wanted the right to hire newly freed slaves, not pay them anything at all, and have them live entirely on tips. So we went from $0 at emancipation to $2.13 an hour, which is the current federal minimum wage for tipped workers in the US. Actually, in most cases, workers who earn a sub-minimum wage get a paycheck that says zero. This is not a paycheck because the wage is so low, it goes entirely to taxes, which means they are living, just as they did at emancipation, entirely off of their tips. In 1938, when everybody got the right to the minimum wage for the first time in the US as part of the New Deal, millions of Black workers actually were excluded. Farm workers who were mostly Black, domestic workers who were mostly Black, and tipped restaurant workers who were mostly Black, mostly women, were left out. So they have lobbied very successfully for 81 years, since the New Deal was passed, that they should be allowed to not pay their own workers, that instead, because their workers get wages, they should get away with paying $0, $1, or $2 an hour. For some, not all, I think there is a relishing of the power dynamic that customers have over these workers, that they are at their beck and call, that they have to put up with whatever they say or do, or however they touch them or treat them or talk to them, because they leave a tip.
I remember working in restaurants, and you would have someone say something extremely inappropriate to you, or you'd have someone touch you. And the thing is it would be the 28th of the month, the 29th of the month. And the first of the next month was rolling right around, and you had a rent check to pay. And so you were more likely to stand up for yourself and to reject sexual harassment on the 15th of the month, or maybe the 10th of the month, when you could pick up an extra shift to make up for telling that guy to go buzz off.
Workers in our industry struggle with 3 times the poverty rate of the rest of the US workforce, use food stamps at double the rate of the rest of the US workforce, meaning the women who put food on our tables can't afford to feed their own children. And a good third are parents, single mothers with children. And all of this economic precarity exacerbates that power dynamic that we talked about. Tips have been so decreased during the pandemic. And I think workers have kind of a light bulb or, realization has dawned that this has never been a reliable source of income. Workers are finally in this country standing up and saying, it's just not worth it anymore, and leaving this industry. If you listen to the National Restaurant Association, you would think there are no restaurants in these 7 states, that they've somehow, killed the economy, all jobs are lost, so no small businesses, when in fact these 7 states have higher restaurant industry sales, higher job growth in the restaurant industry, higher small business growth rates, and we have higher rates of tipping, because it turns out when you pay people better, they tip better. But most importantly, we see 1/2 the rate of sexual harassment in the restaurant industry, because it turns out when you pay women a full minimum wage with tips on top, they don't have to put up with as much from customers. They can reject harassment from customers because they can count on a wage from their boss. Even if you don't care about these workers, but you really want to be able to go back to your Sunday brunch with your friends, we have to change the way people are paid if we want to return to an industry in which workers have the ability to survive while working in restaurants.
No! This Domino's pizza guy is really upset about his last delivery. What follows next is an epic meltdown.
5 minutes out there in the rain and no tip! No tip!
I wasn't having the best day.
I spoke to 23-year-old Malik Ambersley of St. Petersburg, Florida.
During the pandemic, things like tips and stuff like that are important for me to be able to feed, my family and myself and try to keep a roof over my head.
But you were not fired.
And no, good support team there and everything. They talked me down. There was nobody in the store or anything like that.
People losing it over lousy tips seems to be a growing trend during the pandemic. We recently showed you this DoorDash driver who demanded to know why her $8 tip was so low.
I drew 40 minutes.
Now we have another case, an Uber Eats driver who is in tears after a bad tip.
I had to pay $3 to bring this person their food because there was no free parking anywhere near their building. They tipped me $1.50 and Uber paid me $2.50.
Riley Elliott says he's having a hard time making ends meet in Las Vegas.
And it's all because people don't tip their delivery drivers.
I've received, an outpouring of support from other gig drivers. I've received loads of positive messages from folks who tip well.
So what's tipping protocol when a delivery driver rings your doorbell? We asked Mr. Manners, Thomas Farley.
Make sure if the tip is not included that you're giving anywhere from 10 to 20% for the delivery person. This is going to go higher if the distance is greater or if it's inclement weather outside as well.
5 minutes out there in the rain and no tip! No tip!
To be very, very honest, I'm glad he has a really good support team, but if he was part of my support team, I would have cut him loose at the end of that, and that's period. But you can keep giving us a call, 877-785-8700, or through WhatsApp, 437-233-9815. Ms. Lupita, do we have any comments regarding our topic today?
Yes, we do. We have here Desiree that goes, my first experience getting tips was when I was a barista at Starbucks. Yeah, I know. And to be honest, it was really nice surprise every week to see how much more I made because of those tips. That being said, I would not care at all if you didn't tip at all. That's your hard-earned money and it's yours to use however you want. I've heard stories of employees doing things to the food to spite the non-tipping customers. Ridiculous. And we have I can't say, well, it's anonymous then. I did a count of how much money I lose to tipping every month. It's outrageous. Once I was able to figure that out, I started realizing how much is actually unnecessary. I've made it a policy to only tip for the service or product I paid for. Cashiers are a big no. They don't provide customer service or make the food. So, yeah, that's a good point.
If I'm being honest, being somebody who used to work in an environment where you make somebody's drinks and so on and so forth, I think the movement is a little bit too hot, and for you to stop, think, and mess or sabotage somebody's order. I think it really takes a lot for you to do something like that. But we're here live. We're here on Tuber, Facebook, YouTube, wherever it is that you watch us. We have one of our counselors with us, Mr. Savon. He works with the prisons. Come, Mr. Savon. I'm just going to use the mic just because it's right on the fly. Just so you see, we're live, all right? Mr. Savon, are you here? Let's see if we can fix this this thing. Are you an avid tipper? Do you tip when you go out?
I mean, I tip based on the service. I mean, some people think it's mandatory to tip, but you tip based on the service. If you get a service that's not good, why should I give a tip for something that's not up to standard? I think sometimes they feel so obligated that you can see that attitude in their demeanor if they don't get tip. But if the service is not good, why am I going to tip for it?
Now you're from Jamaica.
Yes.
Now let's say you wake up, you want to go.
That's not cultural. Like
No,
that's not cultural. You do your job, you get paid for your job.
Let's say there's a moment where you wake up, Mr. Savon, and you say, I want a patty, right? Cocoa bread, all of that. You go, they put it in the bag, grease leaking through the brown bag, and then they say, you're just going to answer a couple of questions. And there you see the tip. 10, 15, 18. What are you pressing?
That's a hard one.
So just so you see, everybody here in Toronto, if you sell patties, this is the guy. But usually for something small, do you think it's necessary to tip, or is it just kind of an experience that you're looking for?
I think when you get an experience that's excellent customer service, you should feel by your own free will to decide if you're going to tip or not. But these days, it's more of a, It's
kind of
more
like
of,
forced.
yes, like mandatory that you have to give tip. If the service is not good, why should I give you tip for something's not good?
So there you have it. Just make sure you don't force it when it comes to Mr. Savon. And he got you. Mr. Savon, thank you. Some round of applause for Mr. Savon, please. Thank you so much, Mr. Savon. You can keep giving us a call if you want. 1-877-785-8700. Like I said, we're live. Speak your mind. You want to give us your opinion. You want to let me know what it is about tipping. Miss Audrey, do we have any comments? And also, tell me a little bit more about the poll that we have going on Telegram.
Yes, Pastor. So we have, like always, the Telegram poll that everyone can go ahead and scan the QR code if they wish and vote on the following. Like we are speaking about the tipping culture. Is the tipping culture reaching a tipping point? If you believe you got to have that 20%, you can vote on that option. We have I tip according to service, which honestly, I'm going to say that's me. And then we have the third option, which says who ordered gratuity. So we have Fred that sent us a comment that said like this: I hate the tipping system. One specific experience was when I tipped this gal at a restaurant. She was a bad server to begin with, and she was rude, but I still tipped 10%, which I feel I was being generous. And when I went to the bathroom that's around the corner of the server's booth, I heard her getting upset saying to another waitress, "This is my 5th crappy tip today." Glad I wasn't the only one that was finding her service rude and crappy. So there we have it. Maybe people often tip, this gentleman says that he tipped just because he wanted to, but then again, the service wasn't that great. So there we have it.
And just in case you're wondering, that third option that says who ordered gratuity, usually sometimes when you go out to eat, the tip is already included. So, sometimes you look at your receipt and you're like, well, no, I didn't order this, but sometimes it is included. And you can tell Miss Audrey, I'm just saying, if anybody wants to take a photo, she looks like she's working on her tipping, what you call it, her mindset. But it's totally cool. It's absolutely no problem. You can keep giving us a call, 437-233-9815. Now, there are some restaurants who are now asking for up to 30% gratuity. In other words, if you were to waste $100, they're asking you for about $30 when it comes to tipping. I want you to pay attention, and we'll be right back.
Well, you might want to add this to your vocabulary. A new term has been coined connected to the rising cost of everything. It's called tipflation, and you probably know what that means: increasing gratuities for services in places like restaurants. Now, in a recent study, almost half of Canadians who were served at restaurants said their tips are higher compared to before the pandemic. Suggested tips on credit card machines, for example, are also climbing. They're now asking for 18%, 20%, and 25%. And CBC News has found at least one restaurant that is asking for 30% in tips. So to talk a little bit more about this, I want to welcome Katie Ingram. She's the owner of Fleisch Delicatessen in Edmonton. Thank you so much for joining us, Katie.
Thanks for having me.
So let's talk about this for a moment. What are you seeing at your restaurant? Are tips going up in terms of what people are giving and what you might be asking for?
Mm-hmm. I think that there's a number of issues at play. So tips, I think, are going up because people are generally used to tipping on what the total bill is. And so because those total bills have been going up, and up, because pricing has been affected with inflation, I think that's one factor. I do think that, especially in small local establishments with a dedicated following, that people have been more generous throughout the last 2.5 years, if they're able to, because they don't want to see these places disappear, or they have a connection to the staff, and they're rewarding or giving that money to staff as we know you've had this hardship for these last 2.5 years. So I think there's a few issues like that at play with this tipflation.
So what do you make then of certain restaurants, and I'm not sure whether or not this applies to your deli, that are actually changing the way that you can select different options, for example, on either a debit or credit card machine, where it will ask you for specific options. And in some cases, you heard CBC News found one restaurant saying 30%. So what do you make of that move? Is that something that is fair to so many Canadians and really people around the world who are also dealing with the tightening of their own budgets, asking them to dig deeper into their pockets?
Right. I think the interesting thing here is that this is coming at a time where we're hearing about the labor shortage as well. And the labor shortage is definitely hitting the hospitality industry very, very hard. And so I think as a consumer, what I would want to know is, where is that tip actually going? So are those tips being increased on the machine and going straight into the owner's pocket to help with their bills? Or is that going to the person that gave you the service that you believe that you're tipping for? And in some cases, that is not the case. And so as a consumer, and as someone who's tightening their belt and wanting to know where every dollar goes, that's really what you'd want to know. I think that some business owners are using increased tipping as a way to increase wages and attract workers. And some are really using it as a way to recoup some of their losses for the last 2.5 years. And so my recommendation to consumers would be to be more conscious of where that money is going and to ask better questions.
And so to your point then, do you think we need a collective rethink when it comes to the labor force that works in restaurants and bars, how they're compensated, what's being asked
Absolutely.
of consumers? What do you think needs to change there?
What a great question. And I don't have all the answers, but I think asking that question and really recognizing that the last 2.5 years blew the doors off of every industry, but specifically hospitality, and a lot of the cracks that exist and the precariousness of the work. And so I think that rethinking how people are compensated in hospitality and how people are treated and what the work actually looks like is going to be very important. And I think the consumer is definitely part of that. So right now, when you're given the option of 30% on a debit machine, that is still in your hands. That is still, at your discretion. Their wages are potentially at your discretion at that point. So if it were something to say that, as a collective, we're no longer okay with the way that hospitality professionals are compensated or treated, or their work conditions. And so we're all going to agree to, say, a service charge of 20% on our bills. And we know that that's going to go towards paying a living wage, paying benefits, that type of thing. And now that's something that's no longer in your control. Is that something as a consumer that you're going to be okay with because you understand the value for the hospitality professional? So these are really good questions to be asking. And it's certainly something that needs to change.
Have you had food delivered in during the lockdown? And if you did you tip the delivery person? Too many people don't. And many people don't realize just how important those tips are, especially during the pandemic. And there's a right way to do it. Jim Murray has details.
A pizza delivery guy gets upset because he didn't get a tip.
Thanks for the tip. Sorry. What? Yeah, you, bro. What?
He gets into it with the customer.
I don't make money if I don't get tipped.
The delivery guy was fired. This Instacart shopper says she was stiffed on a $55 tip.
It's just a punch to the gut. You just feel like, wow, this is, the type of people that I'm out here serving at this time with this pandemic going on.
Etiquette expert Thomas Farley has a tip on tipping in this era of COVID-19.
If your financial means allow, tip up to double what you normally would for takeout and for delivery.
You can often make it clear in advance if you intend to tip generously. Let's say you use your phone to order from a local restaurant. You order pizza, pasta, some meatballs. You put in your address, and in this case, there's a spot where you can say how much you intend to tip.
Less than an hour after I place the order, here's my food delivered by DoorDash.
Have you been doing okay on tips?
So-so.
So-so.
Yes.
Anybody stiff you?
Of course.
Do they really?
Yeah, of course.
I slipped the guy an extra $20 in cash.
Thank you very much.
Thank you very much.
As for that no-tip pizza guy, our etiquette expert has this take.
I don't approve of the language the delivery person used. With that said, I think the sentiments that he expressed were probably very similar sentiments that a lot of delivery people around the country are feeling right now.
I don't make money if I don't get tipped.
Look, all I'm saying, Ms. Peter, Ms. Audrey, is if somebody delivers my food and they come and they start cursing me out, it's over. it's a done deal. Either we're fighting on the porch, whatever it is. I'm just kidding. Miss Audrey, we have more comments, correct, regarding our topic?
Yes, we have James that says like this. Here's an idea. Eliminate tipping, just charge for the service and pay staff appropriately. That's something that's actually been more of a popular comment that we have been receiving, that a lot of people say that, you know, if the employees were being paid well, then there was probably no need to be so exceeding of the tip, like expecting it, like wanting it, or, you know, necessarily going after it and getting angry when they don't receive it. Because
What I say to those comments, you open up a business, you get your employees, you pay them how much you want to pay them, and then you see how it works out for you.
yeah, so that's what we have it here, the comments. And then we have the final results for our poll that we'd like to read for all of you. Here we have, is the tipping culture reaching the tipping point? We have 8% that say gotta give them that 20%. We have 15% of people that say who ordered gratuity, and the majority that say 77% I tip according to service. So the people have spoken, Pastor. There we have it. The majority say they tip according to service.
Mr. Vita, this person is watching us now through Facebook, through YouTube. They can also follow us on Instagram. We also had our last bit of comments on Instagram. I think you have them with you, correct?
Yeah, so we had our questionnaire on Instagram on our stories, and you can definitely follow us through there, Speak Your Mind CA, where we had a couple people that left their comments on the topic for today, because obviously we know that this topic is a little bit serious when it comes to talking about tipping. So we had Leslie that says she's definitely for tipping. We had Kathy who said it's reaching its tipping point. I only tip restaurant servers. We have the next one, Monse, that goes, I'm like okay with it when I'm not broke. We have Moses there. Oh, there you go, Monse. We can go to the next one. The following, Moses Lanza there, he says, if they give me extra food, I'll tip. So we had Danny that goes tipping 100, definitely. Albert, and who's against it. So that was our, people who left their responses there on our Instagram. You could definitely follow us through Facebook, through Instagram, TikTok also, and YouTube. Speak Your Mind CA.
Thank you so much. And if you guys watch us and you probably do have a little bit of problem, I'm going to be honest. I think if we see our poll, I think this was one of the polls that got majority of votes. I think it brought out the people who like spending, and it brought out the really, really cheap, frugal people. But it's just opinion of mine. But if maybe you're somebody who you even say on the real, Pastor, all jokes aside, I do my best to earn my dollar. I'm a hardworking person. The Bible shows us that sometimes when we work hard, it's as if we put our wages in a bag that's broken. We work, and everything we earn, we put it inside of a cloth, of a bag that has a hole in it. We eat, and we're never satisfied. We drink, and our thirst is never quenched. And maybe that's you. Maybe you're somebody who works one job, two jobs, and you're already getting or thinking about your third job because your life doesn't go forward. You're not able to advance. Well, that's why we invite you. Because in order for you to put an end to that, in order for you to put an end to not just poverty, but any type of misery that can be reigning over your life, you need to come close to God. The Bible shows us that God, He is the one who's in charge of all the gold and all the silver. And it's not that you're going to give your life to God just so you can have that, but God does much more. He makes your life complete. He is that missing piece to your puzzle. And when you include Him in your life, you're going to be able to see things you've never seen. And that's why I want to show you, and I want to end on Flora's testimony, their story. Somebody who was able to overcome depression, somebody who was able to overcome those problems. And if you're watching us right now, after this testimony, and you say, Pastor, how do I learn more about what you do or what you all do there? We're located here at 2420 Dufferin Street. We're right there on the corner of Bowie Avenue. We're about a block and a half from Eglinton. If you want, you can take a photo right now. You can put in your GPS, 2420 Dufferin Street, and you're going to be able to see how the lives of so many people in our gathering of faith and miracles, Sunday at 10 o'clock in the morning, how they're able to change. How many people have seen the power of God? How many people now, they earn their wages, but they don't put it in a bag that is ripped. people who eat and they're satisfied, people who drink and their thirst is quenched. So whatever it is that you're missing in your life, understand that there is a solution to it. All right? Pay attention to this testimony. Have a good night, and I'll see you Sunday. God bless.
I began having depression when I was around 9 years old because my mom had finally decided to leave my dad after many years of mistreatment. It caused a lot of sadness because my dad was my everything at that point. I was always daddy's little girl. So having him far away from me caused me a lot of sadness and a lot of anger and hatred towards my mom, to the point that I wanted to get rid of my mom. I didn't want her to be near me. I had thoughts about killing her, killing my brother, because he was younger and he would always get most of the attention from my mom, even after she left my dad. So it was an anger that built up against her, against my brother, against my dad, against anyone that really was close to me. The worst moment was when the thoughts of suicide actually began starting to overtake me. It was the thoughts of, oh, you're worthless, you're nothing, look, your family's destroyed, your family hates you. And I just didn't want to continue anymore. I didn't really trust anyone, so I kept it to myself. I would come home from school and I would close my door and I would just stay in there crying myself to sleep. That just made the depression worse, and I isolated myself to the point that by the end of like middle school, high school, I didn't really have any friends. I didn't really talk to anyone. I completely isolated myself. I met the Universal Church through my mom, who brought me. She was watching TV one day, and one of the programs was going on. The pastor was praying with the oil on the cross. So my mom decided to check it out that same Sunday. So she came, she brought me. The assistants prayed for me, and it was more of a change that was instant. I wasn't hearing voices anymore. I wasn't seeing shadows anymore. None of the things that would torment me kind of like left away. The assistants, along with the pastor, recommended that myself and my mom would do the chain of prayers on Fridays for deliverance. So during the Fast of Daniel, many of the assistants explained as it was sort of like this cleansing that we were going through in order to receive the Holy Spirit, because we needed to be clean in order to receive that. And I had a lot of complexes, a lot of things still inside of me, a lot of doubts that were stopping me from receiving the Holy Spirit. I thought that I wasn't worthy of it. All the things that I had done in my past, I felt like God wasn't going to forgive me for that. I decided to take the challenge. Even though I had those doubts, I was like, okay, God, I'm going to do this because I don't want to feel like this anymore. So I made that prayer and I began the challenge, and it was hard. It was hard at first, but with the strength that God gave me, I was able to complete it. Learning about the Holy Spirit, I learned that the 21 days challenge wasn't just about stopping whatever you were doing, like watching TV or doing social media or anything like that, but it was about placing God in first place. The day I received the Holy Spirit was the most wonderful day of my life. It was a Saturday. It was a seeking for about an hour, and it just felt like 5 minutes. And I just wanted to continue, but at that point, I knew and I had the certainty inside of me that I had received the Holy Spirit. An assistant came to see me that very moment after I finished my prayer, and I just wanted to hug that assistant, go out in the street, scream, and it was the most amazing day ever. All the doubts and all the complexes that I had before receiving the Holy Spirit completely disappeared. I wasn't confident at all. I wasn't sure of myself. Even though I was delivered, I was always sad inside. There was something missing. Receiving the Holy Spirit gave me the desire to reach out to others who, like myself, were struggling out there in the world. Maybe they have depression, maybe they have suicidal thoughts, they were abused when they were younger, whatever it may be. It gave me the desire to help others, to save souls, to reach as many people as possible. There's always battles. It's a pleasure. It's a pleasure to be alive. It's a pleasure to have a purpose in life. I am very happy.
Join thousands of people every Sunday at 10 a.m. in one faith. Based on this word, again, I say to you that if two of you agree on earth concerning anything that they ask, it will be done for them by my Father in heaven. Matthew 18:19. Receive the 7 prayers.
I don't know how long I had that disease, but the way I found out is I had went to the doctor to have my annual physical. So they called me about the results and told me to get to the hospital because my sugar was so high that was threatening a stroke. So I participated in drinking the blessed water. Faithfully, I did it every day. I just continued in my faith and coming to the church and fighting against it.
Deliverance.
I was a victim of witchcraft. My mother sacrificed me since I was young. I couldn't walk. I was paralyzed for a long time. I don't remember half of my life. I remember being in the hospital. It was King County Hospital. I remember that I had to learn how to walk. I had to learn how to write. I saw demons. People think that evil's not real. It is real. I went to a lot of churches, like 23 Christian church. And I never felt like I felt when I came to the Universal Church. But when I came to this ministry, from the very first time that I stepped through that door, I knew there was hope in this church.
Prosperity.
I had a business that was doing at one point rather well and went down substantially, and experienced just hard times trying to bring it up. I experienced also 3 deaths in my family. My mother, my father, my brother passed away. Then we had the recession, and I really never recovered from that. And it's still hard times, but since I've been coming to the church here, my business is starting to recoup. I see opportunities where my phone is ringing. I want this house built. I want this done. My business is starting to take off to another dimension.
Family.
I was about to separate with my husband, and during the time I was coming to church, I learned to forgive. And when I learned to forgive, I started working on my relationship with my husband. And when my husband never opened up to me, never told me what was going on with his life, until one day I got a knock on the front door, and it turned out to be the police. And I had to learn, okay, God, you are here. I learned through the church, through tribulations, you use your faith. And that's when I said, hey, God is talking to me. This is a way I'm going to find a solution to my problem.
Love life.
And my husband and I were very happy, loving. Everybody in the neighborhood know us and always want their relationship to be like our relationship. Our relationship was an example that people wants to follow. Until one day I found out that my husband had someone else. And that turned me into a bitter and an angry person. Me surrendering my life to the Lord, I got baptized, was filled with the Holy Spirit. Now I have no hate. I'm not angry. I want to even save other people, try to counsel other people who are going through problems in their marriage.
Encounter with God.
The suffering in my life, it started with me just basically having pain all over my body. And my mom took me to the doctor. They could not figure out what was wrong with me. I started having headaches, and the headaches get worse. It would go like from maybe a day, 2 days, 3 days. Then I started to have stomach pain. My whole body was in pain. And I just felt like something, just like a brick drop on my head. And I had that